Hello, all you people with killers inside you out there, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor.
Isn't that all of us, really?
Yes. This is Undeclared Bajor, the best Star Trek DS9 discussion podcast. My name is Fletcher. About to say hello is Data.
Yo!
Today we're going to discuss Star Trek DS9, Season 7, Episode 13, Field of Fire. Alternate title, Red Durangan. Excellent. This episode originally aired February 10th, 1999. It was written by Robert Hewitt Wolfe.
Yep.
He's back.
Yeah, there's actually a fun note about that in here where it was like, so they needed to write this episode, but David Weddell, Bradley Thompson, and Ronald D. Moore were all busy trying to salvage Prodigal Daughter. Ira Stephen Bear and Hans Beimler were working on The Emperor's New Cloak, and Renea Shavaria had Chimera, which is the episode after this. So ISB's like, oh crap, we have no one to write this episode. So he calls up Robert Hewitt Wolfe. He's like, hey, old buddy, I need you to pinch hit here.
I imagine he was doing the thing where he was chopping wood at his remote cabin with a big beard.
Almost certainly. Yeah, it's like he had to Pony Express a letter up there or something. And then he they need me. And he goes and shaves off his beard. But the original idea, it says, was just there's a serial killing sniper loose on the station. And so Wolfe is like, all right. What are we going to do with that?
Amazingly, that is actually the plot of the episode, which is more than we get, I'd say, most of the time.
Yeah.
Compared to the original concept, so...
Although Ira Stephen Bear saw it as being an Odo episode. It's yeah, Odo will investigate and find the serial killer.
That would have been cool.
And then Wolfe is like, we've seen Odo do that kind of thing before. What about Ezri, though?
He just wants to write some Ezri.
And then in his first draft, Duran is there, but he's a hologram. And he was like, that's not really that interesting. Let's go the Trill Mumbo Jumbo route, to quote him.
No, I think that's an apt description of what happened.
Yeah.
And the director is Tony Dow. How now, Tony Dow? And we haven't seen Tony Dow before, have we?
Not that I recall. Hold on, let's take a look here. Okay, Tony, what you got for us? Tony Dow directed one episode of Deep Space Nine. Oh, the producers hired Dow at the suggestion of Dow's friend, Bill Mooney, who had been in the Siege of AR-558.
Oh, yeah.
Dow is best known for his role as Wallace Wally Cleaver on Leave It to Beaver.
Oh, wait. So isn't Bill Mooney Will Robinson?
He is.
So Will Robinson and Tony Dow was Cleaver? What? Beaver Cleaver?
Wallace Wally Cleaver.
So Will Robinson and Wally Cleaver were friends.
Yeah, I'm looking up, which one is Wally?
I assume that's Beaver's brother or something.
Yeah, 13-year-old older brother. Yep.
So Will Robinson was on Deep Space Nine, and he got Wally Cleaver the job to direct this episode.
Yep.
I guess they needed a pinch hit director also.
Maybe, yeah. It's all our normal directors are busy. Let's see. I gotta find out more about this guy's directing career. Maybe he's just really popular. Dow made his directorial debut with the episode of The New Lassie, entitled Once Upon a Time. One of the actors he cast for this episode was Star Trek The Next Generation guest star, Tony J. Let's see. Directed several episodes of Coach. Some other shows I've never heard of. Dow, okay. It looks like he did some Babylon 5, which makes sense because Bill Mooney was also on there. Man, it pays to have friends.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, so yeah, he did a few things.
All the TV kids, I guess, were just hanging out or something.
They gotta stick together, No one's looking out for us TV kids. Man, This guy acted in 2 episodes of Diagnosis Murder in 1999. I didn't know Diagnosis Murder went through 1999.
I think, didn't we look at this before? Diagnosis Murder was actually a much later show than you think it should be.
Yes. Yeah. Apparently it went to 2001, starting in 1993. So yes, I really thought that was like a decade or two before that. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think we've run into that situation before.
Makes sense.
But, and Sirach Lofton is not in the episode.
Nope. Once again, not anywhere to be seen.
This episode could have used some Jake, I think.
Maybe. I won't naysay that.
Oh, you know what would have been cool? Is like Jake trying to play like investigative journalist, trying to track down the serial killer.
He's just continually bothering Odo to the point that Odo can't get any investigating done, and that's why Dax has to solve the murder.
Every time he finds a new clue, like he takes it to Odo, and Odo's like found it like a day ago.
Or Odo's like, well, you've now moved this from where you found it and like tainted the entire scene, so good job.
We're never going to be able to bring a trial against this guy now. But, just a warning, we will be discussing spoilers up through this episode, but not after this episode, so theoretically it should be safe to watch along with us if this is your first experience with Star Trek Deep Space Nine. But other stuff, we do spoil. Books, TV shows, movies, video games.
Leave it to Beaver. Whatever.
Leave it to Beaver. I couldn't spoil Leave It to Beaver with a gun to my head.
Absolutely not. I just found out looking at that guy's IMDb page that there was a sequel show, I guess, called The New Leave It to Beaver, where he once again played Wally Cleaver in the 80s. So, maybe that's a spoiler. They all survived to move on to a new show in the 80s.
They didn't all die at the end. Okay. So it wasn't like dinosaurs.
I don't know if Beaver's even in here. Oh, no, there's Jerry Mathers. He's just not Beaver anymore. He's Theodore Cleaver.
Huh. But first things first, how would you rate the title, Field of Fire?
Okay, well, I guess I find it to be memorable. Like, I know what episode you're talking about when you say Field of Fire. I don't know that it's... I guess it's appropriate enough. I don't know that it's particularly clever. Honestly, it sounds like it could be about a lot of wartime episodes, and this isn't even one focused on the war at all. So, I don't know that it's great, but I think it's decent. It's not bad.
I don't know. I'm not sold on it. Other than I keep humming to myself like I fell into a burning field of fire.
So maybe you would have liked the working title of the episode better. It was called The Killer in Dax.
Huh. Is that like a pun? Is there something called like the Killer Index? Or
I think it's just like the Killer in Me or something, but it's the Killer in Dax.
I know there's like the novel The Killer Inside Me or The Killer in Me. I don't remember. The Killer in Dax. I don't know. I think I kind of like it. That's a little on the nose, but I mean, when I think Field of Fire, I think of like a field that's on fire. I think that's my problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think of it as it's a military term for like the area where you can effectively use your weapon to shoot people. So,
yeah.
Like that's where my mind goes, and I feel like that's fitting for this crazy magic gun.
Yeah, I guess so. Its Field of Fire is everywhere. When I was watching this, I was like, have I seen this episode? And then they were like, how did he shoot from such close range? I was like, oh, right. There's a guy with a teleporter or a transporter on his gun. I remember this now. But I didn't remember who did it. So I was like, wait, did Dax do it and Duran was possessing her or something? But
that would have been a hell of a story.
I'm glad they didn't do that. That would have been lame and annoy me.
Well, and it's getting into it a little bit early, but I feel like Duran apparently committed these murders after being bonded to the Dax symbiont, which means that, as we've previously established, like this is a new personality composed of this guy and the symbiont. So the symbiont is at least in part responsible for these murders, and nobody ever cared about that, I guess. We had the one episode where they tried to prosecute Dax for exactly that, And now it turns out that this actually happened several times, and Dax actually did commit these murders, and just nobody cares.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll talk about that, but you don't have memories of the hosts before they were joined, right? Has that been pretty firmly established?
I don't know that it has, honestly.
Well, we better get into the episode, because otherwise it's going to be really disjointed, because we haven't set any of that stuff up yet. But so as usual, for the beginning of a Deep Space Nine episode, business is booming at Quark's. Although I just realized I think it's been a while since the last time we've opened a Quark's scene with someone winning Dabo.
I honestly do not recall.
I feel like for a while we couldn't open a Quark's scene without somebody yelling Dabo. But the crew of the Defiant is gathered at the bar, and Dr. Bashir raises a toast to the new hotshot 22-year-old helmsman Hector Ilario, who recently piloted the Defiant into battle against 6 Jem'Hadar ships and lived to tell the tale.
And good old Ilario, it's about time that we added a hotshot pilot to our roster. I can't wait for him to be in many more adventures.
This guy's gonna make a great character. He's a great addition to the show.
There's a season of Babylon 5 where the studio insisted that Straczynski adds this hotshot pilot character to the cast. He really didn't want to, and then barely uses him at all, and then kills him off halfway through the season.
Nice.
So it's like the guy's in the opening credits as a main character and everything, but just nope. You're not going to force this guy to do what you want, studio.
But Bashir tells Ilario, if there's anything you want, just name it.
Anything at all, both Bashir and O'Brien say.
Anything at all. And Ilario says, can I join you and Chief O'Brien next time you go to the holosuite? But the Doctor and the Chief immediately shut that down with a suspicious amount of emphaticalness.
It is weird. They have had, the very first time they did the Alamo, Odo was invited along to be Santa Anna.
Odo was invited. So
even if they're using this to live out some weird fanfic where Davy Crockett and Jim Bowie make out in the Alamo, you could let Ilario be Santa Anna and he wouldn't even know.
So you just stay over there. You can capture the Alamo eventually. Though they do concede that the holosuite is a great way to reduce stress. And then O'Brien makes it even weirder by explaining that a holosuite visit is a very personal experience. And then Ilario asks Ezri and Kira if they've ever gone to the holosuite with them, and they say no, never, which I'm pretty sure is not true.
Yeah, that is explicitly untrue. Of Kira in particular, I feel like we could find the time that she went with them. Ezri, I believe that.
Kira was accidentally in the spy game one time.
Well, that's true.
But
she also has a reputation for hating holodeck activities or holosuites, but I feel like there's still been a time where she was in there with them.
Yeah. I think they forgot that because she and Odo go to Vix all the time now.
I feel like maybe Vix is the exception given, their history with the place.
True. I was trying to think, did she voluntarily do the spy program one time? They did I guess the softball game doesn't count.
No, I wouldn't count that.
Or baseball game.
Yeah, it wasn't softball. But
So anyway, Bashir and O'Brien go off to the holosuite to do whatever they do in there.
It's very personal.
Ilario, Ezri, and Kira hang out at the bar and get wasted.
Apparently, they just go way late into the night, and I'm like, you guys can tell him before this point that it's time to go home. You're his superior officers or something.
Yeah, although I think Ezri and Ilario are both lieutenant junior grades, which I thought was weird because he kept calling her lieutenant.
And I guess Ezri is not that long ago promoted to lieutenant junior grades, so this guy might be her superior. Who knows?
But Ilario in particular is pretty drunk, so Ezri escorts him home. And his home, it's established, is near hers, or on the way to hers or something. Ilario blames his condition on the Saurian brandy, which he reminds us is Captain Sisko's favorite. They're just going to keep trying to make that a thing, I guess.
They're just trying to prep us for once the show is over, they'll start marketing Sisko brand brandy.
It's like Captain Sisko's favorite. They go into Ilario's quarters, and Ilario shows Ezri the photograph he has weirdly sitting next to his fruit bowl. It's a picture of him having a good time with his friends from the academy. I just thought I'd show you this, in case it becomes relevant to the plot later, or something, says Ilario. Basically. Then Ilario hits on Dax a little bit, but she goes home and leaves him hanging.
Yeah, he has the line about, in the morning I'll be sober, but you'll still be beautiful. And there's a note in here. It's like, this is likely a reference to the apocryphal, usually misattributed Winston Churchill conversation with Labour MP Bessie Braddock when he was criticized for being drunk and responded with some version of the famous quote, "Bessie, my dear, you're ugly, and what's more, you are disgustingly ugly. But tomorrow I shall be sober, and you will still be disgustingly ugly."
What a classy guy.
Yep, Winston Churchill, class act. I mean, it says that it's apocryphal, so, you know.
Sure. The next morning, Ezri wakes up at 6 a.m.
And okay, look, I don't know how often we've seen the beds in this station before. Maybe it's a lot, and I never noticed, but this is literally like the tiniest bed I have ever seen.
Uh-huh.
I was like, if you roll over, you would fall out of this bed.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you can live in that.
Yeah, I was noticing that too. Maybe that's just the way she likes it.
Oh, could be. She might have specifically requested the half of a twin size mattress.
The quadruplet size or whatever.
Yeah.
So she makes herself a cup of phenalian tea, hot. Then she hears some commotion outside in the corridor. So I guess those quarters aren't super well soundproofed.
I mean, we knew that from the time where Quark wanted Odo to soundproof or whatever the quarters.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Then again, Ferengi hearing is, a little more acute. So
also true. So Ezri goes out and sees a bunch of security officers running to and fro outside Ilario's quarters. She runs over and sees what's going on and sees Odo and Bashir examining the dead body of Lieutenant Hector Ilario. For Lieutenant Ilario has been murdered. Killed with a chemically propelled tritanium bullet. Shot through the heart. But who's to blame? Whoever it is, they're giving Deep Space Nine a bad name.
Wow.
Damn it, I should have banged him when I had the chance, thinks Ezri. So, ladies, let this be a lesson. Don't end up like Ezri.
Oh my gosh, I'm in the middle of reading, it's a Voyager novel. I've been reading some Star Trek books lately. And, B'Elanna Torres and this guy, who is only a character in the books as far as I know, they're in the middle of, sabotaging this alien thing, and they realize that they're definitely going to die. No way that we're going to survive this. And what seems to be completely out of nowhere, because they don't know each other at all before this, the guy's like, you want to, do it before we die? And she's like, no. He's like, oh, okay. And I was just like, how weird is that? But yeah, see, this is what happens. Sometimes, you just gotta do it, or some guy might end up dead.
Yep, you never know. You gotta seize the moment. So, wait a minute, says Cisco. Didn't Starfleet experiment with a prototype rifle called the TR-116, which fired a tritanium bullet? Yes, says O'Brien, but it was never put in production. Then someone must have gotten a hold of the TR-116 replicator patterns, says Cisco. Or, maybe they got a hold of a AK-47 pattern and put some tritanium bullets in there.
Yeah, I was just like, couldn't you make a tritanium bullet for any gun, in theory?
But no, because it's the first thing that came to Cisco's mind, we are firmly dug in on the TR-116 theory. We're not going to do any research to see if there's any other types of weapons from the thousands of alien worlds out there that could match this bullet. But luckily, this theory turns out to be true.
So tritanium has been a thing since the original series, apparently. It is, according to the original series, 21.4 times as hard as diamond.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you don't want to get shot with that.
I mean, I don't imagine it's much worse than getting shot with many other things in the heart, but...
yeah, that's probably true. But since only Starfleet officers have access to the TR-116 patterns, that means the killer must be a Starfleet officer. We've never seen any unauthorized people get into Starfleet systems. Or Quark definitely does not have a big shoebox filled with data rods that he uses to hack into the station systems all the time.
We've never on the show seen weapons dealers who can get a hold of all sorts of exotic weapons.
Impossible. Must be a Starfleet officer. Then Chief O'Brien does some tricording and discovers the bullet only traveled 8 or 9 centimeters. How his tricorder can detect that, I don't know. But there are no powder burns, observes Odo. Odo is apparently an expert in chemically propelled projectile forensic science because of his love of 20th century crime novels.
Which is funny because everyone's like, what are powder burns? And Odo has to explain that, like, he reads these books, which, having recently been watching early episodes of Deep Space Nine again, I know that it's referenced in several episodes that Chief O'Brien, who is the person directly next to Odo as he explains this, is the person who repeatedly gives Odo these old books to read. So
I think maybe Odo has gotten even more into them than Chief O'Brien.
Yeah, maybe.
So, like, maybe it was just kind of like a, you know, one of those things you're interested in for a while, then you give it up. But Odo got really, really into it.
Also, it is a weird picture once you actually see these rifles, that their theory is that someone came into his room with this enormous rifle and stood 8 inches away from him and shot him.
But yeah, point blank shot, no powder burns. What a mystery. Then Ezri asks for the time of death and realizes Ilario must have been killed right after she dropped him off. And since the time of death was like 3:17 a.m., that means she got less than 3 hours of sleep last night.
Oof.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Also, how did they find the body so quick? Is there like a dead person detector or something on the station?
Maybe he had to show up for his shift at like 4 a.m. He wasn't going to get much sleep at all, and then he didn't show up. So
possible. But Captain Sisko takes charge and says, okay, let's figure out what we can about Lieutenant Ilario. Also, let's raise station security. Oh, and Constable. I know, says Odo, you want the killer caught. What a brilliant idea. Thank you.
Yeah, it's like, why would you need to say that?
So the scene is set for a fun Detective Odo episode where he has to draw on his crime novel love to solve this old-fashioned murder. Oh, that's not what we're doing? Oh, okay. Later, O'Brien, Bashir, and Ezri huddle at Quark's to discuss the case. They don't know much about Ilario. All Bashir knows is that he had a big family, 3 brothers and 2 sisters. Wait, says O'Brien, he told me 2 brothers and 3 sisters. Wait, says Ezri, he didn't tell me anything about brothers and sisters. He just kept trying to get in my pants. What does it all mean?
And talking about you guys. Because he was like weirdly into you guys. We find out he's only been here for 10 days, but apparently he is so into Bashir and O'Brien after those 10 days.
Maybe he requested to be. He heard the legends of Bashir and O'Brien
and their holosuite adventures.
Yeah. He's like, oh, if only. O'Brien and Bashir regret not letting Ilario come to the holosuite with them. Ezri regrets not banging him. Yeah, that's what we meant, say O'Brien and Bashir. I mean, yeah. One thing's for sure, they say, if anyone can solve this crime, it's Odo. And that's literally a thing they say.
It's true. Odo will definitely solve the crime.
Get ready to barely see Odo anymore in this episode. Later, Bashir finds Ezri standing over Ilario's coffin. She couldn't sleep, despite getting less than 3 hours the night before. Bashir muses how unimaginable the thought of murdering someone is. But Ezri can imagine it. Because of Duran. Remember Duran? The guy who had a bad reaction to getting joined to the Dax symbiont and killed the doctor?
Is that what the thing is? Like, it was a bad reaction? And I thought he just killed the doctor. And then they were like, oh crap, like, we can't let that guy have a symbiote. He's a murderer.
So, I don't know. Yeah, so I thought what happened was that the doctor had rejected him.
That's what they told his brother. The doctor rejected him for getting a symbiote, and so he went and murdered him in revenge or whatever. But then we find out in that episode that he did get the symbiote, and that it was, I don't know if it was a mistake, or he stole it. Or,
I thought it was a mistake.
Yeah, they play it like, oh, he should have never been, like, passed the test and gotten one, and he did. But then why would he have needed to kill the doctor? Maybe that was just what they came up with. But also, before this episode, I'm pretty sure that is the murder that he supposedly did. And now it's like he killed 3 people. And I'm like, wait, where did these other 2 come from?
Yeah, now he's a full-on serial killer.
Well, I mean, to be fair, we saw him in that previous episode, and I was going to get into that when we get to where we actually see him in this episode, but it was like Cisco like takes on the personality of Duran, and he is like Hannibal Lecter practically.
Right. He was like a psycho. I don't know. I feel like they've gone a long way from the original Duran character, who was he was clearly just like a really troubled guy, but like at the end of that episode, they kind of made it sound like he was also kind of a victim in all this, and then Jadzia was going to kind of like re-accept him into the Dax.
Yeah, it ends with like them hugging or something.
Yeah.
And then we're told in this episode that's like, yeah, she tried to just never think about him after that and push him way down.
Yeah, that sounds like Jadzia.
The opposite of what happened in the episode.
Uh-huh. Maybe she didn't realize what a creepy psycho he was. And then she was like, you know what? Never mind. But yeah, Ezri says she can remember all of Duran's victims. So, I don't know. Whatever was going on with him, I don't know. Ezri walks home, and in the corridor, she runs into Odo and some security officers escorting a prisoner. They've caught the killer. It was Lieutenant Ilario?
That would have been a twist, for sure.
Yeah, I was like, is this like that time the guy cloned himself and then killed the clone to frame Odo?
Yeah, Lieutenant Ilario cloned himself and framed Odo or Ezri, or I don't know.
No, it's just a dream. There's nothing worse than a corpse with a mind of its own, says Dream Odo. And Ezri's like, what? And I'm also like, what? Because that means nothing and doesn't come back in any way.
No, it's very profound when you think about it.
Almost everything is. Then she sees some blood on her hands and some other dream stuff, and then a hand grabs her shoulder. It's Duran. Wait, no, that's not Jeff Magnus McBride, the face mask magician who originally played Duran.
Yeah, apparently he was unavailable to reprise his role. So director Tony Dow was talking about the casting process. He's like, look, Duran is a pretty complex character. The actor had to have some like this crazed unpredictability, and he also couldn't be such a jerk that Ezri would just put him back in the bottle. So the guy that they end up going with, he's like, he didn't have the scariness of appearance that we'd initially anticipated, but he's such a terrific actor that it worked out well.
Yeah, I don't know. But he wasn't doing any like cool mask magic, so
yeah, it's a shame.
That was kind of disappointing. But he did play some piano, so I guess we do remember that aspect of Duran, that he knows he was a musician.
Yeah, he plays some sort of freaky future piano.
Yeah, it's a space piano.
With like a guitar attached, or I don't even know.
It's a trill piano, I don't know.
Sure. And he does get real creepy in this dream sequence, I have to say.
Yeah, he says a bunch of creepy stuff. Basically a bunch of like, I'm part of you, Ezri. And then he tells her to perform the, quote, rite of emergence, so he can use his serial killer expertise to find Ilario's murderer.
Because if you don't emerge him, then he can't do that, I guess.
I don't know. I guess he can only... I don't know. Yeah, logically, shouldn't she just be able to think back to those, like, memories inside her? But
you would think, yes.
But anyway, then he throws her off the dream balcony and Ezri wakes up in her little tiny bed. And then I was thinking, because when she's in the bed, she's wearing like a tank top and we get to see like extra spots on her shoulders.
It's true. I did notice this.
And I was like, there's like 6 total seconds screen time of those shoulder spots. Like that seems kind of like a lot of commitment to...
And I figure by this time, they probably have the process of getting them on there pretty down.
Yeah, I imagine it's like some kind of like rub-on process or something.
I figure it's like a rub-on tattoo or something. Yeah, it's probably not that difficult.
Yeah. But I was just like, I would have, if I was the director, I would have just been like, because everybody else has these pajamas. I would have been like, yeah, put her in some pajamas. Ezri wakes up just in time to get a call from Cisco that there's been another murder. This time, it's a 37-year-old science officer. Same MO, killed in her quarters, tritanium bullet, close range, no powder burns. Wow, we really need to solve this crime, says Captain Obvious. I mean Cisco. He asks Ezri how well she did in criminal psychology class. And she's like, I mean, I did a 3-credit-hour course in undergrad, but you'll recall you had me skip most of my training.
Yeah.
And then Odo interjects, excuse me, I have multiple certifications in criminology and criminal psychology. Plus, I've conducted hundreds of murder investigations over a long law enforcement career. No, says Captain Cisco. This job belongs to Ezri.
Well, it's not like he's taking Odo off the job.
It's like, you, the undertrained rookie station counselor, will solve this crime. So later, Bashir and O'Brien discuss the case over coffee. Why use a rifle to shoot your victims at close range, they wonder. Maybe he planned to shoot them from far away, but changed his mind, speculates Bashir.
And couldn't make a different gun.
Hey, there was only the one TR-116. I don't know what TR-1 through 115 were, but... Or maybe he has a connection or fetish with this particular rifle, says Bashir. And O'Brien's like, you think he had sex with the rifle? And then Bashir goes on a tangent about Davy Crockett and his rifle, and how some people give their rifles female names to make the relationship more like a man and woman relationship, which I assume means they have sex with their guns. Then Bashir starts to tell a story about how Davy Crockett would set up frying pans to ricochet bullets off of to hit the target. Wait, that gives me an idea, says O'Brien. Cut to Ezri and Odo, but not Bashir, who I presume is busy following up on the rifle sex theory, standing in the science lab looking at a big purple melon. O'Brien calls them on the intercom and tells them to put on some safety goggles to protect their eyes from this incredibly dangerous live fire experiment. Then the melon explodes and O'Brien comes in holding a TR-116 rifle and wearing a eyepiece thing.
Yep.
And I was just like, I wanted to see like Ezri get shot in the eye and just be like, the goggles, they do nothing. Maybe they are bulletproof goggles. This is the future after all. They're like transparent aluminum or something.
Well, you're not supposed to, it's not for that. It's so that you don't get melon in your eyes.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, who's to say this incredibly untested method of shooting someone with a transporter gun isn't going to go horribly awry?
I mean, O'Brien did say he tested it a couple of times before they got there, so...
I thought he said he only tested it one time or something.
Oh.
Regardless, you shouldn't be having people stand right next to melons that you're shooting.
He made them move pretty far back.
I don't know. This is pretty dangerous. Also, I'm sure there's a reference to like this is an homage to the scene in Day of the Jackal when he shoots the melon.
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
yeah, nothing about a melon in here.
Oh. So that really annoyed me on the Day of the Jackal miniseries they did recently, where it was this kind of like cool modern reimagining of Day of the Jackal, but then for some reason they did like an exact recreation of the famous melon shooting scene, including like his outfit, his like 1960s outfit, which makes no sense like for a modern person to be wearing.
You know, some people are just they like to wear small clothes.
Just in that one scene.
Yeah.
So I had to gripe to someone about that, and now I've done that.
Okay. I'm sorry. I found it. It's when he tells them to step further back. He's like, move further back. I've only done this a couple of times.
Okay. So I maintain that is very unsafe. Like when you're at the shooting range, like everybody has to put down their guns when someone goes down range.
Yeah, it's true.
So O'Brien explains that he attached a little transporter to the end of his rifle and used a, quote, exographic targeting sensor to aim the bullet. Then the transporter transports the bullet right in front of the victim, and apparently the transporter also preserves the momentum of the bullet.
Yes. This is way too OP of a weapon for no one to ever have used before. Like, I feel like there are countless situations that have come up in this show where being able to see through walls all over the place and then shoot someone from super far away would have been, like, game changers. I mean, you go back to the siege of AR-558, like, you could have been shooting those Jem'Hadar from way off, given how far away they can shoot people in here.
Oh, yeah.
Or that time when they're on Empok Nor and they're like, oh man, there's some, like, crazy Cardassian killers loose on here. You could just be, like, standing in one place and scouting the whole station with the exographics targeting sensor. Like, this is ridiculous. This is one of those things where I'm like, okay, you have now pushed too far on the suspension of disbelief ask here.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, wait, so that thing on your eye lets you see into any room anywhere on the station?
And just anyone can make those?
Yeah. Yeah, O'Brien's like, you know, standard exographic sensor. Don't you guys have those?
It's like, do you remember the time that, like, Quark was trying to take a holographic picture of Kira and, like, people kept walking in the way and he was, like, having to bob and weave? I'm like, Quark could have just gotten an exographic thingy-mabob for that, apparently.
Yep.
Got her in the shower and everything and made a great holo program.
Just wasn't smart enough, I guess.
Yeah.
I just like to think O'Brien's like, oh yeah, this is just, this is Molly plays with this one, So later, Ezri reads through the files of the two dead people to see if she can do some victimology, but she can find no connection. She sits out late on the promenade, so late that she sees Morn walking home with a lady friend.
I mean, yeah, I think Morn scored a Dabo girl, so good for him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you assume she's a Dabo girl because she's wearing an incredibly, like, sleazy-looking costume. But
I mean, yeah, this is about as skimpy as you can get and still be covering anything at all, so.
Yeah, I mean, Morn's out there playing, so. And then we get the weirdest scene in the episode. Ezri hears some strange noises coming from the upper floor balconies. Who's there, she says, but there's no answer. Just more strange noise. Is this another dream? She follows the noise to its source and finds lurking in the shadows Worf.
Yeah, widely known for his inability to be stealthy.
And I guess he's back from his purple space bazooka adventure.
Yeah, finally, right?
Are you following me? Says Ezri. Yeah, so, says Worf. I lurk in the shadows and stalk all my friends. You need any help with the murder case? No, there's only one person who can help me, says Ezri.
Odo.
But I don't know if I should ask him. Worf says, well, if he can help, you should ask him. I know you will do whatever it takes to get the job done, for you are Dax. So Ezri goes home and stares in the mirror and starts chanting in Trill. And after she says her magic spell or whatever a few times, her reflection changes to Duran. And then Duran is behind her. Duran is happy to finally not be ignored, calling himself the Forgotten Host. But not as forgotten as that guy who stole the Dax symbiont that one time.
Yeah, that guy doesn't count. Look, this is maybe the biggest, even bigger BS than the TR-116 rifle is this Trill ceremony, because we had an entire previous episode where Jadzia is like, in order to talk to my previous hosts, I have to psychically stick them in other people's bodies and then have conversations that way. And now it turns out that, no, you can just call one up and then you have like a hallucination of them walking around talking to you. Like, no.
And didn't she have to like call in like an elder from Trill to like perform the ceremony? And yeah, there's all kinds of stuff involved.
Yeah. And so this is, he said Trill mumbo jumbo and he was not kidding. And it's just like, yeah, we made up some crap. And some crap that like outright contradicts previous crap that we'd made up. And also this is where we start talking about how like Curzon and Jadzia always stuffed his memory way down deep. And I was like, wait, but it's explicit in the show that Curzon did not know this guy existed.
Yeah, they specifically say they erased the memory and that it was suppressed until Jadzia started having hallucinations or whatever.
Yeah, so we're really blaming Curzon for something that he does not deserve blame for.
Yeah. So she does her Trill mumbo jumbo. Duran is here. Anyway, Duran tells Ezri she needs to get into the mind of the killer. and she should start by holding the rifle and aiming it at someone to see how it feels. So they go to where the TR-116 O'Brien made is being stored, I guess the science lab or whatever.
Yeah.
Duran says, "It's a handsome weapon. I could understand why someone would want to have sex with that rifle." "What?" says Ezri. Nothing. Take it down and hold it." "Yeah, hold that rifle. Feel it in your hands." "No, hold it killerier. Now put on that magic eyepiece that can see into any room in the station." And Duran guides Ezri through hunting through the quarters until she finds a guy that's just hanging out in his room. Lucky for him, he's not doing anything embarrassing.
Yeah, the thing is, the magic eyepiece doesn't appear to be reversible, but Chief O'Brien definitely wears it on his right eye, and Ezri definitely wears it on her left eye. So I'm like, are there two of these, or...
I mean, practically speaking, the prop is probably like a little headband and then a thing that swings around. So you can just put it on the other side of your head and like swing it.
Well, except it's kind of not. It's got like thingies that go like around your ears. So I don't think it would work to just like turn it the other way because it doesn't have those thingies on the top.
I'm 99.9% sure they only made one rifle, but maybe the headpiece prop was easy enough that they made two, but what's even the point? Maybe they made like a left side one and a right side one just so the director would have that choice or something.
I mean, Ezri's left-handed now, and O'Brien, I guess, is right-handed. Yeah. So maybe it's like your dominant eye, whichever side you're holding the gun on, or I don't know.
Yeah, I just think they were just like, well, maybe the director will want to film from this side, so we'll give him like one that he can put on that side of the head or whatever. I don't know. So yeah, the guy's just hanging out in his quarters. I was just thinking, there's like an old Onion article that was like, I forgot, it was like study shows that like average person becomes absolutely deranged psychopath when alone. And it was like, it's like the test subject was just pacing back and forth in his room for like half an hour, mumbling to himself. So maybe it's just me that does that. I don't know.
I do love how apparently there's no like question of like, is it right to like violate people's privacy like this? No, just do it. It's fine. Yeah.
Well, she tries to like linger out in the corridors, but he's like, no, go into the quarters. So Joran asks Ezri to describe the feeling, and she says it feels powerful, in control, but also cold and detached, methodical. The killer might be a scientist or a doctor. Maybe a doctor who has a gun fetish and an unusual interest in the way the relationship between man and gun mirrors the one between man and woman. Who knows? We're just brainstorming here. Then Joran tells Ezri to put the victim in her sights and pull the trigger. But she refuses. The gun wasn't loaded, says Joran.
I don't believe him. I don't know how he would even know, honestly.
I mean, basic firearm safety says you shouldn't be... Well, I mean, you should assume every gun is loaded.
Right. Well, it's just like any sensory input he gets presumably comes through Ezri's eyes and senses.
True.
So if she doesn't know that, I don't know how he knows that.
Although, okay, that's a good point. Because later he's looking at the photograph and she has her back turned to it. Because he was like leaning over looking at this photograph. And I was like, oh, okay, they were smart. They didn't have him like pick up or touch the photograph. But now that you mention that, how was he looking at it when her back was turned to it?
Maybe if she like glanced past it, that put it in her head enough that he could like pay more attention to it. I don't know.
Yeah, this is far from the biggest flaw with this episode.
It's true, yeah.
This is like the anti-nitpick of the week. But yeah, Joran's like, come on, we have to get into the head of this killer. Later, Ezri and Joran hang out on the promenade, which, from the point of view of everyone, looks like Ezri is just standing there talking to herself. And I do like the detail that, like, the extras walking past her were, like, kind of looking at her weird as she was talking to Joran. Quark comes to check on Ezri, and Joran says he'd love to slip a knife between Quark's ribs, which, take it down a notch, dude.
I mean, at least as previously established, this is actually down a notch from when Cisco was being Joran.
True. Yeah, when Cisco was Joran, he was like kind of like a raving lunatic, or more like a manic type thing. And this time he's definitely a lot more of like the Like the cold serial killer creepy type. I don't know. I feel like they're not very consistent with the portrayal of Duran is what I'm trying to get.
Not in any way.
I mean, didn't he straight up try to murder Jadzia when he was in Sisko's body?
Yep, and then he started bashing Sisko's head against the force field until they're like, okay, get him out of there.
Duran suggests going to the victim's quarters to see if they can find anything there. So first they go to Ilario's quarters, but there's nothing strange there. I mean, there's that one lone picture weirdly placed in the middle of the room next to the fruit bowl. But other than that, nothing. And Esri already looked into those other two people in the photo, and they both have alibis.
Well, one of them is dead, so that's a pretty good alibi, yeah. But did you notice, speaking of the fruit bowl, that the guy that she was looking at through the rifle is sitting directly behind this giant bowl with big balls in it? It's the weirdest, most obtrusive set dressing.
I did not notice that, but was it one of those, do people always have these, bowls of balls in their houses? And I'm like, where do you buy those? But I feel like that was called out on some sitcom I saw one time. But
I'm pretty sure I've seen somebody call that out, somewhere.
But it is a thing I have noticed also. So then they go to the second victim's quarters. Esri looks at a picture she finds in there of the victim with her husband. And while she's holding the picture, she remarks in frustration that these two victims just don't have anything in common.
It strikes me as really... she resists at every step actually investigating things. Duran is constantly nudging her to do things, and she's like, what? Why? There's no point in that. And she gets to this room, she just starts listing off all the things that they don't have in common instead of making any effort to look for things that they do. And I'm just like, do you just not want to be investigating the murder? Why are you even here if you're going to be just obstructing your own self all the time?
And I will point out that in the movie Red Dragon and the movie it's based on, Manhunter, and presumably the book that it's also based on, Red Dragon, how they find the killer is that all the victims had family videos that got processed by the same lab.
Oh.
So I don't know if that's a conscious borrowing of that plot point. Manhunter would have been out by that point anyway, but probably just a coincidence. I just thought that's a little interesting.
I mean, we know how much ISB loves to take from random movies.
So Esri goes back to Quark's to talk crazily to herself from everybody else's point of view. Duran scolds her for not being committed enough to putting herself in the mind of a killer or whatever. And then there's some commotion. The security team is chasing someone. The fleeing suspect runs right past Esri, and she knocks over a chair in front of him to trip him. And then she grabs a knife from a table and climbs on top of him and is about to stab him, but then Odo stops her.
Yeah, it's she really jumps to a lot of conclusions here with this must be the guy who is the murderer. He could be a pickpocket or something. You don't know.
Yeah. Slow down here, Esri. Also, that's like a butter knife. You're not going to do a ton of damage with that. And then Sisko calls Esri and Ghost Duran into his office, and he's like, "Why are you trying to stab people?" And Esri was like, "Okay, that's my bad, but the guy is the killer." And Sisko says, "No, he's not the killer. They were trying to question him because he replicated a TR-116, but it turns out he just collects weapons. What he does with them, I don't know." But then Sisko suggests taking a break from the investigation as he's just realized this isn't even her job, but she begs to be kept on the case. Which, it's like she actually has a badge and is deputized to investigate this case.
Don't take me off, Chief. I can do it.
Yeah, I wanted him to be like, "You're off the case," and then she has to go rogue or something. As they leave the office, Duran talks about how much he doesn't like Ben and continues his usual annoying psycho shtick. And Esri has had enough, so she goes home to the magic mirror and starts chanting in Trill to get rid of Duran. But right as he's almost faded away, she gets a call from Odo that there's been a third victim, and Duran fades back in. This time, the victim is a Bolian, someone Jadzia knew. A family man with a wife and a co-husband back on Belarus.
Co-husband doesn't make the picture, though, that we're going to see in a minute.
Well, I was also kind of fixated on that detail, and I think both of the other people in the picture were supposed to be his kids.
Oh,
I think.
Okay.
But I don't know. Maybe you don't take pictures with your co-husband. I don't know.
Not allowed.
And also, up till this very moment, I was convinced that the Bolian homeworld was called Boleus, not Bolaris. But I did go on Memory Alpha, and apparently I was wrong. That was just a Mandela effect or whatever. I come from the alternate time stream where the Bolian homeworld is called Boleus.
Apparently, when I search for Boleus, there is a Boleus system, although it only appears in the TOS video game, The Rebel Universe. So probably you have not run into that.
Yeah. Maybe I just kind of assumed like Boli and Boleus. I don't know. But so much for the theory that the killer only targets humans, says O'Brien. Was that a theory?
I mean, it fit with the data they had up to that point.
True. There are 2 data points that were pointing in that direction, I guess. Duran looks at a photo of the victim with his family and wonders how he could look so happy with such ugly children, which, dude.
Also, as Duran is looking around over there, Ezri is going through the drawers, and these are the worst drawers I've ever seen in my life. Like, they're not drawers. They look like drawers, but they just kind of like tilt outward on a hinge.
Yeah.
And
they kind of flip open.
Yeah, you put stuff in them, but there's no like protection on the back end. So if you put stuff in it and then close it, it would all just fall out into the open cavity inside of the chest of drawers or whatever. Like it's really poorly designed.
I don't know. It's futuristic. Maybe you just don't understand how this technology works.
Probably.
But then Ezri has a realization. The victim is laughing in the photograph. And then we get a couple of kind of ridiculous whip pans of Ezri in the other victims' quarters, realizing that they're laughing in those photos too.
They were like jarring transitions, I have to say.
I mean, you just have to imagine. She's like, he's laughing in this photograph. Come with me. Then it's like 15-minute walk through the station to the next quarters. Pick up the picture. Laughing. And then like putting it down. It's like, come with me again. And then like walking 15 more minutes and then going to the other quarters, picking it up. Laughing.
We can just remember what they looked like. It's okay.
Yeah. No, this is film. It's a visual medium. It kind of reminds me of the way people complain about Christopher Nolan, the way people have these conversations that like stretch from scene to scene to like location to location, and it makes absolutely no sense.
Oh, yeah, it's like they stopped talking and then started talking again, like when they got to this completely different place.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's go to this other building. And then it's like they resume like the conversation on the exact beat they were on like before. So anyway, the laughing, that's the connection. The killer doesn't like pictures of people laughing. And that is it. That is the actual motive. Yep. Bizarrely, Ezri has figured it out. And you know who hates emotion, says Ezri? Vulcans. And Duran is like, whoa, slow down, Miss Racial Profiler.
It's really, like, okay, I get you're really desperate for a connection, so when the picture thing pops up, you're like, let's chase this down and see where it leads, because this is all we have.
Uh-huh.
But this is such a leap, where it's like,
right.
Yeah, no one else could have had some sort of horrible, emotionally scarring experience that made them hate laughter. It must be a Vulcan.
Yep. So they start looking through all the Vulcans officers on the station. Ezri kind of tries to do some deducing based on what it means for the laughter to be happening in the photographs or whatever. But the episode's almost over, so they just wind up running into the killer in the elevator.
Yeah, they specifically do not want to tell Odo, because why would we want to enlist his help in narrowing the field down? And then it is literally like, dude gets in the elevator and Duran is like, it's this guy.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just like, oh, look at his eyes. Those are killer eyes. Or he's just being awkward because you're talking to yourself like a crazy person. But...
It was so insane. Like, this is the worst example of it, when the two of them are in the elevator alone, as far as Mr. Vulcan can tell. And Ezri turns, looks directly at him, and goes, "What are you doing?" And the guy is like, "Are you talking to me?" And she's like, "What? Oh, no, sorry." Like, yeah. Why? Honestly, why would you even ask? Are you talking? Like, is there someone else she might be talking to?
Yeah, I'd be like, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was doing anything. And then she introduces herself as Counselor Dax, and he does kind of creepily go like, I know. But he's a Vulcan, so maybe he just like has, he's not good with manners or whatever.
He's just creepy, it happens.
They go to read the file of the Vulcan guy, Lieutenant Chulak. It turns out his entire ship was destroyed in battle, and he was one of only like 6 survivors. Duran says he's probably hunting for his next victim right now, because seriously, we have like 3 minutes left in this episode. So Ezri grabs the rifle and the magic eyepiece to see what he's doing. He's on his computer, but Ezri can't see what he's looking at, so she just zooms in through his body to see his computer screen. And he's looking at her file. Then she sees him get up and grab a rifle and put on his own magic eyepiece that looks exactly like hers.
Yep.
And Duran is like, quick, shoot him! So Ezri loads the gun and shoots him right as he's aiming his rifle at her, and then she hits him and he misses and the bullet hits the wall behind Ezri.
And goes through the wall and causes like some stuff to come out into the room that I'm unclear on what it is.
Yeah, it apparently hit the radiator steam pipes or something. I don't know.
Also, random fun fact, Chulak, name of an important planet in the Stargate universe.
Oh. So Ezri runs down to Chulak's quarters and finds him laying wounded on the floor.
Once again, doesn't call Odo first or anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's very specific. She has not called security yet because she does that later.
Sometime as she realizes he's pulling out a rifle of his own, that's when you should be like, security, report immediately to this guy's quarters. He is the killer.
Yeah. But Ezri grabs his rifle from him. I guess she put her rifle back before she ran down here. But she grabs his rifle from him and asks why he did it. And he says, because logic demanded it. And Duran is like, okay, now execute him.
We never get any other explanation except that logic demanded it, so...
Right.
There's a note from Wolf that we picked a Vulcan as a serial killer because we were like, what would be the biggest surprise to a regular Star Trek fan? No one would be surprised if a Bajoran or a Cardassian or a Romulan is the killer. But a Vulcan serial killer? That'll make you sit up and take notice. I wanted to show that the psychological strains of the war are far-reaching. If you've got a Vulcan who's cracking under the battle, that says something.
Wow, there's so many layers going on here.
So, does Ezri execute the guy?
No, Duran wants Ezri to just murk the guy, but she lowers her rifle and calls security.
It would have been hard to explain to, like, Cisco later on. It's like, yeah, he was down, and I had his weapon, and he was looking up at me, so I just put one between his eyes. It was the only way to be sure.
Yeah. Logic demanded it.
Yeah.
Then she goes home to the magic mirror to say her magic spell and make Duran go away, and just before he fades, he tells Ezri, I'm part of you now. You won't be able to forget me. And Ezri's like, yeah, okay, whatever. And then he's gone. The end.
That is what happened. It's true.
Yep.
They told the director when he was getting ready for this episode, they're like, go watch the 5th season episode, The Darkness and the Light, because it has, like, the same sort of mystery feeling to it. Ira told me it was the only other show of this type they'd done. There isn't much personal violence on the series, so when it does occur, it's something to be reckoned with.
True. I mean, there was also the episode where they solved that, like, cold case that turned out Kira did it.
It's true. I don't know that there was a lot of personal violence in that one. There was a little bit, like a guy stabbed Quark.
Yeah, I mean, they stabbed Quark and then they went to commercial acting like he had died.
He's dead.
They're like, Quark is dead. Definitely dead. And they come back from commercial. He's like, oh no, he's okay.
Yeah, no, it's all right. And Rom's like, are you sure? It was great. Let's see. Nicole DeBoer says she enjoyed this episode. It was a risky and dangerous move for her, she says, and one she didn't want to share with others because of how they might react. But it was certainly an unorthodox way of solving the mystery, and we got to see more of her serious side. And I got to carry the big gun.
Nice. Good. Glad she had fun.
And the last one I have is Hans Beimler is saying, the fun of Field of Fire was finding that hard edge we knew Ezri had all along. We knew she had a side of her that had been buried very deep, but she'd been playing this kind of confused, fun, intelligent, but ultimately gun-shy person. This allowed us to bring up the side of her that would stay with her from now on. After this, that woman was not the same. She now had Joran in the forefront, and she was part killer. That was the goal of this episode, to bring that side of her out.
Okay, if you say so.
So I guess we'll have to go into the rest of the season trying to spot if Ezri is now part killer.
Yeah, I assume for the rest of the season, Ezri has this like hard-edged dark side to her that is like scaring everybody she talks to.
Yeah, she's
like
pulling knives on people left and right.
Yeah. She's doing like a lek and just like sharpening her knives all the time.
Practicing throwing them because you never know when you might need that.
Yeah. But okay, let's go to reviews.
Okay, what did you think of Field of Fire?
Well, I did not like it very much. I mean, the numerous ridiculous plot contrivances are one thing, but also I was kind of annoyed the whole time that we had this murder mystery, and we even start setting up, it's like, oh, Odo can solve this case, and Odo does not solve it, apparently. Which I don't buy. I think Odo totally would have, like, found this guy and arrested him and stuff.
Odo would have made the racist connection way sooner than Ezri.
Yeah. Wait a minute, who hates emotion? Vulcans. And it was just like, you know, I like this whole, like, Odo digging into his crime novels thing. I was like, oh, that could be a fun, like, angle. And, like, maybe he has to, like, to sharpen his skills, he goes into some, like, crime hollow novels or something. And, like, we get to see Odo wearing, like, a trench coat and a fedora and stuff. No, none of that. It's all kind of this lame, like, Hannibal Lecter style plot of Ezri investigating. I feel like Ezri's character was not really developed as much as they were trying to tell me it was, or whatever. I don't know. Also bothered by the just. I guess Duran is just straight up a serial killer now.
Yep.
Like, we never mentioned that before, but yeah, he was just going around killing people.
He loved shoving knives between people's ribs and
yeah, yeah. So anyway, it's just I feel like it's kind of a dud of an episode, but also it's not super bad. Like I think I can say pretty firmly that it's like a lieutenant for me.
Okay.
So what do you think?
Okay, look, I have a lot of problems with this episode. And we've talked about a lot of them. I mean, the inconsistency with everything Trill in the episode is very annoying to me. And this is going back to maybe the last episode where Ira Stephen Bear's like, you just have to, like, loosen your sphincter or whatever. And don't be so uptight about, like, stuff needing to be consistent and canon or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, I am that guy who's uptight about that, and you guys just crapped all over it in this episode. So that bothers me. The thing about Odo doesn't necessarily bother me. I'm like, yeah, Odo solving a mystery, I can see why you'd expect that. I guess I didn't have that sort of anticipation about it going into it, so it didn't stick out to me really, even when you're, like, pointing it out. I was like, okay, sure, why not? It feels like kind of a team effort. Like, O'Brien comes up with some pieces of it. Bashir makes a little bit of a contribution. Ezri, like, brings it home. It's annoying to me that Ezri is, like, dragging her feet at every stage of the investigation and basically having to be, like, shoved into all of, like, her revelations, which I feel like that's not doing her character much of a service.
Also, her revelations are, like, ridiculous leaps of logic.
Yes, just like crazy leaps of logic from A to B to Z for some reason.
But they all turn out to be true.
Yeah,
so.
It's all correct, except for that one time when she was going to stab the guy when she made the crazy leap that security's chasing this guy who must be a murderer who needs stabbing. So I'm annoyed by all that stuff. On a more meta level, I'm also annoyed that we've had these, I think, is it 3 episodes in a row of focus on Ezri? Which I don't mind. And the last one was Mirror Ezri or whatever. So yeah, I get that they haven't had a chance to do anything with her, and this is the only season that they're going to get this chance. So they're throwing a bunch of stories in here. I feel like you could have spread them out a little bit. Also, this is 3 mid-season stories with absolutely no connection to the larger arc, which early on in the show, when we had, like, these arc episodes that actually developed the overall story, I'm pointing at them and being like, I like this, that when the times that we take moments to develop the overall story. Now we are in the middle of the final season, in the middle of the giant war. it feels almost inexcusable to go this long without even touching on it. I guess we're really tangentially connected to it here in that it's like, oh, this guy started murdering people because of the horrors of war that he saw. But we're at like the linchpin outpost in the middle of the largest war ever, and we're messing around doing stories about like O'Brien's going to see what happened to his old buddy's wife, or Ferengi mirror universe shenanigans, or this stuff. Like, I'm just like, this is not the time for this, y'all. It's just, I don't like that aspect of it either. So I have lots and lots of issues with this episode. All that being said, I actually kind of like it, weirdly. I enjoy the ridiculousness of it in a lot of ways. It's fun. I like Ezri. I don't mind, seeing her wake up in her nightie, and I'm like, okay, I'm on board for this. So,
I mean, I don't think she was wearing a nightie, but
anyway, that's neither here nor there. Seeing like her being pushed to this weird dark, like she almost pulls a trigger on the guy for no reason, and then the follow-up is like, oh, the gun wasn't loaded. She didn't know that, so like, and then she almost stabs the guy. She almost executes this Vulcan at the end of the episode. It's like, we're definitely doing some different stuff with her, and I can appreciate it from that side of it. So this is above the line for me. I think I came into this thinking I'm going to give it a commander, honestly, and now after all the talk that we've had about it, I think I'm going to have to go down to lieutenant commander. But this is an episode that when I think back on Deep Space Nine Season 7, this is a positive episode for me that I'm like, oh yeah, I like that one. And I have very little justification for that. Just like there's been some episodes in the past that I absolutely hate, and I have very little justification for why. This is just the other way on that. I like this episode, and so it gets above the line for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine to like stuff that is bad. Everybody does it.
Yeah, it happens,
I mean, you bring up a good point, which is, I think some of my favorite scenes were the everybody working together to try to solve the mystery stuff. Like just everybody was just like, ooh, let's get in on solving this mystery or whatever. And Bashir is there and offering insights, which turn out to be totally meaningless, but he's having fun.
They put O'Brien in the right frame of mind, at least. So
and so like I was thinking, maybe a cool episode would be like O'Brien and Bashir are doing like holodeck or holosuite like detective stories. And then there's a real mystery, and like they want so badly to like help investigate it. And then Odo is really annoyed with them, but then they wind up solving the crime or something like that.
That feels like a season 2, like Jake and Nog shenanigans almost to me. But I would totally be on board for it nonetheless.
I need to put that on the list of episode ideas. Yeah, anyway. You got any final thoughts about this episode?
No. Actually, hold on. Yes, you reminded me of one more thing. In that, I've had problems in the past with us doing a bunch of these like single character focus episodes in a row, and these episodes have, as I point out, the last 3 episodes have been a lot of Ezri focus, but they are not like so laser focused. Like this one, there are definitely some. We were just talking about it. Everyone kind of contributes here. Not everyone, but a bunch of people. Cisco's contribution is like, I want this mystery solved, damn it. But but you get the ensemble in place here. You get the ensemble, the Ferengi part of the ensemble in the previous episode. You get a little O'Brien in the one before that. So it doesn't feel as like laser focused on one character as the ones that I really hate. Or maybe it's just because I love Ezri that I'm willing to give it a pass. But either way.
We got Worf lurking around in the shadows for some reason.
That was like, this is his only appearance in like 4 episodes now, if you don't count the Regent. So what a weird choice to make. Maybe they were just like, oh, we've been a long time without Worf. We got to get him in here somewhere.
Well, they were like, oh, we got to do something. Oh, something suspenseful and mysterious is happening. What's happening? I don't know. Worf is there. I don't know. Although, the last episode, it was really more of a Quark and Rom adventure.
It's true.
With Alt Esri. So yeah, that's our discussion of Field of Fire. Thanks for listening. If you like that one, maybe you want to put out some of that fire. Maybe you'll like our discussion of Ties of Blood and Water, which you can find wherever you're listening to this. And we have the YouTube channel, and if you want to at least leave us a comment, you can do that there. And we might say, cool comment, or whatever. But my name is Fletcher, about to say goodbye as Data.
See ya.
We look forward to seeing you next week on Undeclared Bajor, but remember, we're part of you now.